More coffee, you useless cow. The voice cuts through the ambient noise of rain and the vintage jukebox playing something mournful in the corner. Sarah's stomach clenches. Not him. Not tonight. Derek Masterson sits in booth 7, his expensive suit a jarring contrast to the diner's peeling vinyl seats. He's flanked by 2 other men, Todd something and Marcus something, all of them radiating the particular cruelty that comes with old money and newer power. They've been here for 2 hours, running up a tab they'll probably dispute, leaving messes they expect her to clean without complaint. Before we continue, please prove my mom wrong. She says I can't hit 1,000 subscribers. Okay, let's continue. Coming right up, Sarah manages, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. She's learned not to react. Reaction only makes it worse. She reaches for the coffee pot, its handle warm against her palm, when the bell above the door chimes. The sound seems to stretch, elongating in a way that makes the hair on the back of her neck stand up. She glances toward the entrance. The man who enters doesn't walk so much as materialize from the rain-soaked darkness. Water drips from his dark coat, not running off it, but dripping as if even gravity hesitates around him. His features are sharp, almost too perfect, with pale skin that seems to drink in the diner's harsh lighting rather than reflect it. There's something wrong about him, something that makes every instinct Sarah has learned in 32 years of surviving scream at her to look away. She doesn't look away. His eyes find hers across the distance of the diner. They're an impossible shade, not quite gray, not quite silver, but something in between that catches the light like mercury. For a moment, everything else falls away. The rain, the cruel laughter from booth 7, the ache in her feet, the $300 electric bill sitting on her kitchen counter at home, all of it dissolves into those eyes. Hey, coffee! Derek's voice shatters the moment. The pale man's gaze shifts, just slightly, toward the booth. Something flickers across his face. Not quite anger. Something colder. Sarah forces herself to move, to pour the coffee, to approach booth 7 with the pot held like a shield. She's learned to make herself small, to take up as little space as possible when men like Derek are in the room. Took you long enough. Derek doesn't look up from his phone. My grandmother moves faster than you, and she's been dead for 5 years. His friends laugh. It's the kind of laughter that's mandatory, that speaks of hierarchy and fear dressed up as camaraderie. Sarah pours carefully, watching the dark liquid rise in Derek's cup. She knows better than to fill it completely. He likes to complain about spills, likes the excuse to berate her within earshot of the other late-night customers. You know what your problem is? Derek finally looks up at her, and his eyes are small and mean. You're here because you failed at everything else. Failed marriage, failed career, failed life. This, he gestures around the diner with disgust, this is all you'll ever be. The words land like physical blows. Sarah's hand tightens on the coffee pot. She wants to say that her marriage failed because he found someone younger. That her career ended when the company downsized and she was too old to be considered for new positions. That she's here because rent doesn't pay itself and her daughter needs braces, and college funds don't materialize from thin air. Instead, she says nothing. Derek. The voice comes from behind her, low and smooth as aged whiskey. That's enough. Sarah turns. The pale man from the door has somehow crossed the distance without her hearing his footsteps. He stands there, water still dripping from his coat, but now she can see details she missed before. The coat is expensive, probably more expensive than everything in her apartment combined. His hands, visible at his sides, are elegant, with long fingers that look like they've never done a day of manual labor. But it's his presence that strikes her most. He doesn't take up much physical space, but the air around him seems to compress, to acknowledge him in a way that defies logic. Derek looks up, irritation flickering across his face before calculation takes over. This doesn't concern you, friend. Just a little employee management. She's not your employee. The pale man's voice hasn't risen, but somehow it fills the diner. And I'm not your friend. Listen, whoever you are. Theron. The name falls like a stone into still water. Theron Ashcroft. Sarah sees Derek's face change. The color drains from it so quickly she wonders if he's having a medical emergency. His friends have gone still, their earlier bravado evaporating like morning mist. Mr. Ashcroft, Derek's voice has transformed, all the earlier cruelty replaced by something approaching terror. I didn't realize we were just leaving. Theron's interruption is quiet but absolute. You were just leaving. Derek stands so quickly he nearly upsets the table. His friends scramble to follow. They throw bills on the table. Too many bills, Sarah notices, and practically flee toward the door. Derek pauses at the exit, looking back at Theron with an expression Sarah can't quite read. Fear, yes, but also something like recognition. Like he's just seen a ghost he thought was safely buried. Then they're gone, and the diner feels suddenly too quiet despite the rain and the jukebox. Sarah realizes she's still holding the coffee pot. Her hands have stopped trembling, replaced by a different kind of tension. You didn't have to do that. Theron turns to face her fully for the first time. Up close. She can see that his eyes aren't just unusual. They're wrong. The pupils are too dark, too deep, like looking into wells that have no bottom. But there's something in them that isn't cold at all. Something almost gentle. Actually, I did. He moves to booth 3, sliding into the worn seat with a grace that seems practiced over centuries rather than years. May I have coffee? And whatever you'd recommend for someone who hasn't eaten in quite some time. Sarah's mind is still catching up. She knows that name, Ashcroft. Everyone in the city knows that name. The Ashcrofts own half the downtown real estate, fund museums, throw galas that make the society pages. But she's never seen any of them. Certainly never expected one to walk into the Red Ribbon Diner at 11:30 on a Tuesday night. The meatloaf's good, she hears herself say. Well, it's edible, which is about as good as it gets here. The corner of his mouth lifts. It's not quite a smile, but it transforms his face from merely beautiful to something that makes her breath catch. Edible is a low bar, but I'll trust your judgment. She should go put in the order. She should be professional. Instead, she finds herself asking, why did they leave like that? Just because of your name? Theron looks at her for a long moment. In the flickering fluorescent light, his skin seems to shimmer, and for just a second Sarah could swear she sees something beneath the surface. Something moving. Something alive, in a way that human skin isn't. Because they know what I am, he says finally, and what I could do to them if I chose. The temperature in the diner seems to drop 10 degrees. Sarah should be afraid. Every rational part of her brain is screaming at her to back away, to run, to do anything except stand here engaging with this man who suddenly seems more shadow than substance. What are you? The question escapes before she can stop it. Hungry. He says it lightly, but there's weight behind the word. And not interested in being cruel to waitresses who've done nothing to deserve it. It's not an answer, not really, but it's something. Sarah nods slowly and goes to put in his order. Her co-worker, Marge, 65 and permanently exhausted, gives her a curious look from behind the grill. Who's the looker in booth 3? Marge asks, cracking eggs with practiced efficiency. Trouble, Sarah responds, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. Best kind, Marge says with a wink that suggests she knows more than she's saying. Sarah brings the coffee back to Theron's table. His booth faces the window, and he's watching the rain with an expression of profound sadness. It's the kind of sadness that speaks of years, of losses she can't imagine. She pours the coffee, and he wraps his hands around the cup without drinking. You're not afraid of me. It's not a question, but there's curiosity in his tone. Sarah considers this. She should be afraid. Everything about him screams danger, from his impossible beauty to the way Derek Masterson fled like a scalded cat. But when she looks at him, really looks, all she sees is someone who seems unbearably lonely. Should I be? Probably. He finally takes a sip of the coffee, and something flickers across his face. Pain? Discomfort? But I find I'd rather you weren't. The bell above the door chimes again. This time, 3 people enter, and the temperature drops even further. They're dressed too well for the red ribbon, too composed, too perfect. A woman in front with red hair that falls like blood down her back. 2 men flanking her like guards, both of them radiating the same wrong but right energy as Theron. Sarah sees Theron's shoulders tense. It's the first crack in his composure she's witnessed. The red-haired woman's eyes scan the diner and land on Theron with laser precision. A smile curves her lips, but it's not a pleasant expression. It's the smile of a predator who's found prey. Well, well. Her voice carries an accent Sarah can't place. Old Europe, maybe, or somewhere that doesn't exist on modern maps. The prodigal prince, slumming in the mortal world. How absolutely quaint. Theron stands slowly. Vivian. I thought the council granted me asylum. Asylum. Vivian laughs, and the sound makes the windows rattle. Is that what you call hiding among the cattle? Father is disappointed, Theron. You were supposed to return 3 days ago. Sarah's brain is struggling to process. Prince? Council? Cattle? Nothing about this conversation makes sense, but the threat in Vivian's posture is unmistakable. I'm not going back. Theron's voice has changed, taking on an edge that wasn't there before. I told him. I told all of you. I'm done with the court. Done with the killings? Vivian's interruption is sharp. The hunts? The games Father so enjoys? She takes a step closer, and Sarah realizes with growing horror that Vivian isn't walking normally. She's gliding, her feet barely touching the ground. You don't get to simply opt out of what you are, brother. The blood calls. It always calls. Sarah's hand moves to her apron pocket, where she keeps a small knife for opening boxes. It's pathetically inadequate, she knows, but it's something. The movement catches Vivian's attention. Those predatory eyes lock onto Sarah, and suddenly she understands what it feels like to be a mouse under a hawk's shadow. Vivian's smile widens, showing teeth that are just slightly too sharp. Oh, how precious. The little human thinks she can protect you. Vivian moves toward Sarah with inhuman speed. Let me show you what protection looks like in our world, darling. Sarah doesn't think. She moves. One moment she's behind the counter. The next she's standing between Theron and Vivian, the pathetic box cutter gripped in her hand like a weapon. Her heart is hammering so hard she can hear it in her ears, and some distant part of her mind is screaming about how stupid this is, how utterly suicidal. You'll have to go through me first, Sarah says, and her voice doesn't shake even though every cell in her body is screaming at her to run. The diner goes absolutely silent. Even the rain seems to pause. Marge has frozen behind the grill, spatula raised like a question mark. Vivian stares at Sarah with something between amusement and genuine surprise. Do you have any idea what you're doing, human? Probably not, Sarah admits, but I know bullies when I see them, and I'm tired of watching them push people around. For a long moment, nobody moves. Then Theron is there, beside her but not in front of her. His hand comes to rest gently on her shoulder, and his touch is cold. Not unpleasant cold, but the cold of marble monuments and deep caves. Stand down, Vivian, he says quietly, or I'll invoke the blood right and challenge you here and now. The red-haired woman's expression shifts. The amusement drains away, replaced by something harder. You wouldn't dare, not in front of witnesses, not after you. Wouldn't I? Theron's interruption carries weight that makes the air itself seem heavier. I've already broken every other rule. What's one more? Sarah can feel the tension crackling between them like electricity before a storm. She keeps the box cutter raised, even though she's increasingly certain it would be about as effective as a toothpick against a tank. Finally, Vivian steps back. Father won't forget this defiance. And he certainly won't forget her. Her eyes rake over Sarah with disdain. A waitress. Truly, Theron, Your taste has become desperately common. Better common than cruel, he responds. Tell father I'll return when hell freezes over, which, given our family's proclivities, should be never. Vivian's laugh is bitter. You can't hide forever. Not from what you are. Not from the hunger. She turns toward the door, her guards following. At the threshold, she pauses. When you fall, brother, and you will fall, I hope she's there to see what a monster you really are. Then they're gone, leaving only the fading scent of something ancient and the normal sounds of the diner slowly returning. Sarah realizes she's still holding the box cutter. Her hands are shaking now, delayed reaction setting in. Theron gently takes the knife from her fingers and sets it on the nearest table. That, he says softly, was either the bravest or most foolish thing I've ever witnessed. Probably both. Sarah's legs suddenly feel like water. She sits down heavily in the nearest booth. What are you people? Theron slides into the seat across from her. In the harsh light, she can see the exhaustion on his face, the weight of whatever burden he's carrying. The stories you've heard. Vampires, blood drinkers, immortals. They're all true. Every nightmare your species has ever whispered about in the dark. We're the source. Sarah's brain rebels against this information. Vampires aren't real. They can't be real. But she's looking at him, at his too perfect face and those impossible eyes, and she knows he's not lying. You're a prince. The words feel absurd coming out of her mouth. Was. I abdicated, or tried to. He runs a hand through his dark hair, and the gesture is so human it makes her chest ache. My father is King Matthias Ashcroft. He rules the Eastern Court, which controls everything from here to the Atlantic. I was supposed to be his heir, his successor, his legacy. What happened? His eyes meet hers, and the pain in them is raw enough to make her flinch. I realized I didn't want to spend eternity watching humans as entertainment, hunting them, playing with them. My father, he sees your kind as toys, things to be used and discarded. I couldn't do it anymore. Sarah thinks about Derek Masterson, about the casual cruelty in his eyes. She thinks about every person who's ever treated her like she's less than human because she serves them coffee. So, you walked away. I walked away. He says it like a confession. 3 months ago, I've been trying to figure out how to exist without the court, without the power structures, without everything I've ever known. It's not going well. Hence the diner at midnight. A ghost of a smile crosses his face. Hence the diner at midnight. Marge appears with a plate of meatloaf, setting it down in front of Theron with more care than the dish deserves. She looks between them with knowing eyes. On the house, she says. Anyone who scares off Derek Masterson earns free food in my book. After she leaves, Sarah watches Theron push the food around on his plate without eating. You can't actually eat that, can you? Not really. It's uncomfortable, like you eating sawdust. He sets down his fork. But I appreciate the gesture. What do you eat? The question comes out before Sarah can consider whether she really wants to know the answer. Theron's expression becomes carefully neutral. There are ways, blood banks, volunteers. Some of us have learned to survive on less than tradition dictates. I haven't killed anyone in 63 years, if that's what you're asking. 63 years. Sarah tries to process the implications of that timeline. How old are you? 247. He says it casually, like someone mentioning they're 35. I was turned in 1778 during the Revolutionary War. I was a soldier, a dying soldier, when my father found me on a battlefield and decided I had potential. Sarah's head is spinning. She's sitting across from someone who walked through centuries, who watched the world transform in ways she can only read about in history books. That's overwhelming. He leans back against the booth. I forget sometimes how strange it must sound. To me, it's just existence. The diner is empty except for them and Marge. The rain has softened to a steady drizzle. Sarah should probably go home. Her shift ended 20 minutes ago, but she finds herself unwilling to move. unwilling to break whatever fragile connection has formed across this table. "Why did you help me?" she asks. "With Derek, you could have just ignored it." Theron looks at her for a long moment. "Because I've seen too many people like him. Too many predators who use power to hurt those with less. For centuries, I was supposed to be one of them. I'm trying very hard not to be anymore." There's something in his voice, a vulnerability that doesn't match his perfect face or his impossible nature. Sarah finds herself reaching across the table, her hand stopping just short of his. "You're not like them," she says. "I don't know you, not really, but I know that much." He looks at her hand, then up at her face. "You shouldn't trust me. Vivian was right about one thing. The hunger is always there, always calling. I'm not safe, Sarah Blackwood." Hearing her name in his mouth sends an unexpected shiver through her. "How do you know my name?" "Your name tag." But there's a hint of amusement in his eyes that suggests he might be lying. "And I asked Marge." Despite everything, the fear, the confusion, the absolute insanity of this night, Sarah laughs. It bubbles up from somewhere deep, surprising both of them. "You asked Marge about me?" "I wanted to know who would stand between a vampire and certain death with a box cutter." His smile is genuine now, transforming his face into something that makes her heart skip. Turns out it's a 32-year-old mother of one who works 3 jobs and still finds time to volunteer at the local shelter. Sarah blinks. "Marge told you all that?" Marge is remarkably chatty when properly prompted. They sit there, smiling at each other like idiots, and for a moment Sarah forgets that he's not human, forgets that his sister threatened her, forgets that this is probably the worst decision she's ever made, and she once married a man who turned out to have 2 other families. The bell above the door chimes. Sarah's heart leaps into her throat, but it's just an elderly man in a rain-soaked coat, looking for coffee and pie. Marge takes care of him while Sarah realizes she's been holding her breath. Theron stands, pulling out his wallet. Sarah sees a flash of gold credit cards, more money than she sees in months. He leaves several $100 bills on the table, way too much for meatloaf he didn't eat, and coffee he barely touched. "I should go," he says, "before more of my family comes looking. They won't stop, Sarah. Vivian will report back to my father, and he'll see you as a weakness, something to exploit." The reality of the situation crashes over her. She stood between a vampire prince and his enemies. She made herself a target, and for what? A man she just met? A man who isn't even really a man? But when she looks at him, all she sees is someone trying desperately to be better than what he was born to be. Someone fighting against his own nature. She knows something about that. About fighting against expectations. About trying to survive when the world seems determined to grind you down. "I'm not afraid," she hears herself say. "You should be." But he doesn't move toward the door. Instead, he reaches into his pocket and pulls out a card. Heavy stock, embossed lettering. He sets it on the table between them. "If you need anything. If they come back. If Derek causes more trouble. Call this number. It's direct." Sarah picks up the card. Theron Ashcroft, with a phone number and an address in the expensive part of town. The part where people like her only go to clean houses or serve at parties. "Why are you doing this?" The question encompasses everything. The help, the card, the way he's looking at her like she matters. "Because in 247 years, nobody's ever stood up for me." His voice is quiet, almost lost under the sound of rain. "Not once. And you did it with a box cutter and absolutely no chance of survival." He moves toward the door, that inhuman grace making him seem like he's floating. At the threshold, he pauses and looks back. "Be careful, Sarah Blackwood. My world is not kind to those who get caught in it." Then he's gone, disappearing into the rain like he was never there at all. Sarah stands alone in the empty diner, holding a business card that might as well be a live grenade, and wondering what the hell she's just gotten herself into. Marge appears beside her, wiping her hands on her apron. "That one's trouble." "I know." Good trouble, though. Marge's eyes twinkle. Best kind. Sarah goes home to her tiny apartment, where her 14-year-old daughter Emma is asleep on the couch, homework scattered around her like fallen leaves. She covers Emma with a blanket, picks up the papers, and tries to pretend her hands aren't still shaking. The next 3 days pass in a blur of normal life. Sarah works her shifts at the diner, picks Emma up from school, pays bills she can barely afford, and tries not to think about impossible eyes and vampire royalty. She doesn't call the number on the card. She doesn't even look at the card, which she's hidden in her sock drawer like a secret. But she thinks about him. God help her, she thinks about Theron Ashcroft constantly. On the 4th day, Derek Masterson comes back. Sarah sees him through the window before he enters, and her stomach drops. He's not alone this time. There are 5 of them, all in expensive suits, all radiating the particular menace of men who've never been told no. She considers calling the number. Her phone is right there in her apron pocket, but something stubborn in her refuses. She's handled Derek before. She can handle him now. They take the same booth, booth 7, and Derek's smile when he sees her is cruel enough to make her skin crawl. Sarah. He draws out her name like it's something distasteful. Did you miss me? She approaches with her order pad, keeping her expression neutral. What can I get you, gentlemen? How about an apology? Derek leans back, spreading his arms across the booth like he owns it, like he owns her. You embarrassed me the other night. In front of my colleagues. That doesn't happen without consequences. Sarah's grip tightens on her pen. I didn't do anything but serve coffee. No, you let your boyfriend threaten me. Theron Ashcroft. Derek's eyes glitter with malice. Did you know he's under investigation? That his whole family is being looked into for money laundering, racketeering, and about 15 other crimes? Did you know that associating with them makes you an accessory? It's a bluff. It has to be a bluff. But there's just enough confidence in Derek's voice to make her wonder. I'm not associated with anyone. I served him coffee, same as I serve everyone. That's not what I heard. Derek glances at his friends, who laugh on cue. I heard you two had quite the intimate conversation. I heard you protected him from some associates. That sounds pretty associated to me. One of Derek's friends, the one with the scar over his eyebrow, pulls out his phone. Got her address right here. Nice place. Well, nice is generous. 4th floor walk-up in the East District. You live there with your daughter, right? Emma? She goes to Jefferson Middle School. The threat is unmistakable. Sarah's blood runs cold. Leave my daughter out of this. Then apologize. Derek's voice has gone flat, deadly serious. Get on your knees and apologize for embarrassing me, for thinking you're better than me, for existing in my space like you matter. Sarah looks around the diner. It's busier today, lunch rush, which means more witnesses, but also more people who won't help, who'll watch and do nothing because that's safer. Easier. She thinks about Emma, about keeping her safe. She thinks about bills and rent and jobs that are hard to come by when you're over 30 without a college degree. She thinks about bending the knee to men like Derek, because that's how women like her survive. Then she thinks about Theron's eyes, about the way he called Derek out without hesitation, about the way he said, I'm done with the court, done with accepting cruelty as normal. No, Sarah says clearly, I won't apologize. You're a bully, Derek. You get off on hurting people who can't fight back, and I'm done pretending that's acceptable. Derek's face goes red, then white. He stands and his friends stand with him. They're blocking her exit, surrounding her like wolves around injured prey. You stupid, the diner's lights flicker. Not the normal flicker of bad wiring, but something else. Something deliberate. The temperature drops so suddenly that Sarah can see her breath misting in the air. Derek stops mid-sentence, his eyes going wide with an emotion Sarah has never seen on his face before. Genuine terror. She turns slowly. Theron Ashcroft stands in the doorway, but he's different now. There's no pretense of humanity in his posture, no attempt to soften what he is. His eyes have gone from silver to something darker, something that seems to swallow light instead of reflecting it. Power radiates from him in waves that make the air shimmer. But he's not alone. Behind him stand 4 others. A woman with black hair and a face like carved ice. A man so tall he has to duck through the doorframe, with shoulders that suggest he could break the building if he chose. 2 others, twins maybe, with matching sharp smiles and eyes that glow faintly red in the dim light. And behind all of them, 1 more figure. Older, with silver hair and a face that could be handsome if it weren't so cold. He wears a suit that probably costs more than Sarah makes in a year, and he carries himself with the absolute confidence of someone who has never had to answer to anyone. King Matthias Ashcroft, Sarah realizes with growing dread. The vampire king himself. Theron's voice, when he speaks, could freeze oceans. "Gentlemen, I believe the lady asked you to leave." Derek looks like he might faint. His friends have gone pale, backing away with their hands raised like Theron might shoot them. But Derek, to his credit or his stupidity, stands his ground. "This is between me and her," Derek says, and Sarah has to admire the way he keeps his voice steady. "You don't have any right? Theron moves into the diner, and the other vampires follow. Sarah realizes with dawning horror that the lunch rush has frozen. Every customer, every worker, even Marge, they're all still, like someone hit pause on reality. "I'm going to explain something to you, Derek Masterson, something you clearly don't understand." He crosses the distance between them and the space between heartbeats. Suddenly he's there, right in front of Derek, and the businessman stumbles backward so fast he trips over his own feet. "That woman," Theron points at Sarah without looking away from Derek, "is under my protection. That means if you threaten her, you threaten me. If you hurt her, you've declared war on my entire court. Do you understand the implications of that?" "Your court," Derek's voice cracks. "You left." "Everyone knows you left." "I came back." Theron's smile is terrible to behold. "For her." The words hang in the air like electricity. Sarah's brain is struggling to process. He came back? He returned to the family and the power structures he rejected. For her? King Matthias moves forward, his shoes clicking on the linoleum with sharp precision. "My son is correct. The mortal woman is now protected by the Eastern Court. By me. Any harm that comes to her or her family will be considered an act of aggression against the throne itself." His eyes, so similar to Theron's, but infinitely colder, fix on Derek like a collector examining an interesting insect. "I've looked into you, Mr. Masterson. Your business, your associates, your habits. I know about the harassment complaints, the women you've driven from their jobs, the lives you've damaged because you could." Derek's face has gone from pale to gray. "I don't know what you... Lying to me is unwise." Matthias's interruption is soft but absolute. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave this establishment. You're going to never return. You're going to forget this woman exists. And in exchange, I won't have my people audit every single transaction your company has made in the last 10 years. Because I promise you, we will find something. We always do." It's a threat wrapped in silk, delivered with the casual ease of someone who has destroyed men like Derek before breakfast. Derek nods so hard Sarah worries his neck might snap. Yes, sir. I understand. Go." Matthias doesn't raise his voice, but the command in it is undeniable. Derek and his friends scramble for the door, nearly falling over each other in their haste to escape. The bell chimes as they flee into the afternoon light, and Sarah watches them disappear down the street like smoke in wind. Then Matthias turns to her, and Sarah understands what it means to be truly seen by a predator. "So," he says, his voice carrying centuries of experience and power, "you're the human who convinced my son to return." Sarah wants to back away, wants to run, wants to do anything except stand here under that ancient gaze. But she forces herself to stay still, to meet those cold eyes. "I didn't convince him of anything," she manages. "I don't even know what's happening. Matthias studies her like she's a puzzle he's trying to solve. No, I suppose you don't. He glances at Theron. She has courage, at least. More than most of your previous interests. Father. Theron's voice carries a warning. Relax, boy. I'm not here to challenge your claim. Matthias waves a dismissive hand, though I'm curious what you see in her. She's ordinary. Human. Mortal. In 70 years, she'll be dust, and you'll still be here, missing her. The casual cruelty in his words makes Sarah's chest ache. She starts to respond, but Theron steps between them. She's braver than anyone I've ever known. She stood between me and Vivian, armed with a box cutter. She defended me when she had every reason to run. And she's more human in her worst moments than you've been in 5 centuries. His voice is hard as diamond. That's what I see in her. Matthias looks at his son for a long moment, something unreadable passing across his face. Then, incredibly, he laughs. It's not a pleasant sound, but it's not entirely cruel either. You always were the softest of my children. But there's almost something like pride in his tone. Very well, the mortal is protected. Her daughter as well. Anyone who touches them answers to the throne. He turns to leave, then pauses. But understand this, human. My son has returned to court because of you. He's given up his freedom, his exile, his attempt at a normal existence. That debt will weigh on you. Then he's gone, and the other vampires follow. The diner unfreezes all at once, conversations resuming mid-sentence, dishes clattering, the normal chaos of lunch rush, continuing like nothing happened. Sarah realizes she's shaking. She looks at Theron, who's watching her with an expression she can't quite read. You came back, she whispers. You gave up everything. Not everything. He takes a step closer, and his hand comes up to gently touch her face. His skin is still cold, but somehow it feels right against hers. I found something worth coming back for. Sarah's breath catches. She's aware of every eye in the diner on them, of Marge's knowing smile from behind the counter, of the way reality has shifted into something she doesn't recognize. I'm nobody, she says. I'm just a waitress with too many bills and not enough hours in the day. I'm divorced and tired, and my feet hurt, and I can't give you anything that... He kisses her. It's gentle, almost hesitant, like he's afraid she might break. His lips are cool against hers, but there's warmth underneath, something that speaks of life beyond life. Sarah's eyes close, and for a moment the diner falls away. The customers, the dishes, the constant worry that fills her days, all of it dissolves into this single point of connection. When he pulls back, his eyes have returned to their normal silver. You're not nobody, Sarah Blackwood. You're the woman who reminded me what it means to care about something beyond survival. That's worth more than you know. Sarah wants to argue, wants to point out all the ways this is impossible, all the reasons they can't work. But the words die in her throat when she sees the way he's looking at her. Like she's precious, like she matters, like she's worthy of protection from vampire kings and ancient courts. What happens now? She asks instead. Theron's smile is soft, genuine, human in a way that makes her heart ache. Now I teach you about my world. Introduce you to the court, the ones who won't try to kill you anyway. And you teach me about yours, about working 3 jobs and raising a daughter and surviving in a world that treats you like you're disposable. That's a terrible trade. My world is exhausting. So is mine, but maybe together they'll be less exhausting. He offers his hand and Sarah looks at it for a long moment. She thinks about Emma, about the danger she might be bringing into their lives. She thinks about the impossibility of a relationship between a vampire prince and a diner waitress. She thinks about all the sensible reasons to say no, to walk away, to protect herself and her daughter from something she doesn't understand. Then she thinks about Derek's face when Theron defended her, about the way the vampire king himself declared her protected, about standing in this diner at 32 years old, tired and broke and forgotten by everyone who matters, and having someone look at her like she's the most important person in the room. Sarah takes his hand. The customers in the diner burst into applause. Sarah startles, having forgotten they were there. Marge is grinning so wide her face might split, and even the elderly man from the other night, the one who wanted coffee and pie, is clapping enthusiastically. "About damn time!" Marge calls out. "I've been watching this unfold for 3 days. The tension was killing me." Theron laughs, and the sound is so unexpected, so genuinely joyful, that Sarah finds herself laughing too. They stand there in the Red Ribbon Diner, holding hands and laughing like idiots, and for the first time in years, Sarah feels something besides exhaustion. She feels hope. "I should probably warn you," Theron says as the applause dies down, "that dating vampire royalty comes with certain expectations. Formal dinners, court appearances. My sister will definitely try to kill you at least once." "As long as there's coffee involved, I can handle it," Sarah responds. Then, more seriously, "Will Emma be safe? I promise you, on everything I am and everything I have, that no one in my world will touch your daughter." His voice is absolute, unshakable. "She's protected. You're both protected. I'll burn down my father's kingdom before I let anyone hurt either of you." Sarah believes him. Maybe she's foolish. Maybe she's being naive, but she looks into those impossible silver eyes, and she believes every word. "Okay," she says. "Let's try this. Whatever this is." Theron leans in and kisses her forehead. The gesture so tender it brings tears to her eyes. This is me choosing to be better than what I was, and you helping me figure out how. No pressure or anything. None at all. That evening, Sarah comes home to find Emma doing homework at the kitchen table. Her daughter looks up, taking in Sarah's expression, and her eyes go wide. "Mom, why do you look like you just won the lottery?" Sarah sets down her bag and sits across from Emma. There's so much to explain. About Theron, about vampires, about the absolute insanity her life has become in less than a week. But looking at her daughter's open, trusting face, she realizes the most important thing to communicate. "I met someone," she says simply. "Someone who sees me. Really sees me. Not just the tired waitress or the struggling single mom. Me." Emma's face breaks into a smile. "Is he nice?" Sarah thinks about how to answer that. "He's trying to be, and I think that's more important than actually being nice. Does that make sense?" "Not really, but you look happy, so I'll allow it." Emma returns to her homework, then glances back up. "Is he rich?" "Very." "Okay, definitely allow it then. Think he'd pay for my braces?" Sarah laughs until tears stream down her face, and Emma joins in, and for the first time in forever, their tiny apartment doesn't feel quite so small or quite so empty. Her phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. "My father wants to meet you formally. Tomorrow, if you're willing. I'll be there. You'll be safe." Sarah stares at the message. Tomorrow she'll meet a vampire king in his court, surrounded by immortals who've lived through centuries she can only imagine. Tomorrow her life will change in ways she can't predict, but tonight she's here with Emma, laughing over geometry homework and the possibility of braces, and a man who kissed her like she was precious. She texts back, "I'll be there." The next day, Sarah Blackwood, divorced waitress, single mother, survivor, walks into the Ashcroft estate wearing her best dress, which isn't very good, and her only pair of heels, which pinch. Theron meets her at the entrance, offering his arm like they're in a period drama. "Ready?" he asks. Sarah looks up at the massive building, at the old money opulence, at the life she never imagined touching. Then she looks at Theron, at the way he's chosen her despite every logical reason not to, and she smiles. "Let's go meet your family." They walk in together, the vampire prince and the diner waitress, and Sarah Blackwood discovers that sometimes the most powerful thing a woman can do is stand her ground when the world tells her she should bow, even if she has to do it in pinchy heels. The Ashcroft estate smells like old money and older secrets. Sarah's heels click against marble floors that have probably cost more than her entire apartment building. Crystal chandeliers hang from ceilings so high they disappear into shadow, and every surface gleams with the kind of polish that requires full-time staff. Theron's hand rests at the small of her back, steady and grounding. She can feel the tension in him, the way his jaw tightens every time they pass another vampire in the hallway. And there are so many of them, elegant creatures in expensive clothes, their eyes tracking Sarah's movement like cats watching a mouse. "They're staring," she whispers. "They're curious." Theron's voice is low. It's been 300 years since anyone brought a human into the court as an equal. They don't know what to make of you. I don't know what to make of me either. He squeezes her hand. "You're doing fine." They reach massive double doors carved with intricate patterns, wolves and roses intertwined in impossible detail. 2 guards stand on either side, both of them tall enough to play professional basketball and built like they could bench press cars. They nod to Theron and pull the doors open. The throne room, because of course it's a throne room, is exactly as absurd as Sarah imagined. High ceilings, more chandeliers, and at the far end, a raised platform with 3 chairs that look like they belong in a museum. King Matthias sits in the center, looking every inch the monarch in his perfectly tailored suit. Vivian occupies the chair to his right, her red hair swept up in an elaborate style that probably required an hour and several assistants. The chair on the left is empty. Theron's chair, Sarah realizes. The room is full of vampires. Dozens of them, arranged in a loose semicircle facing the thrones. They turn as one when Sarah and Theron enter, and the weight of their attention makes her knees weak. These aren't just dangerous. They're apex predators pretending at civilization. "Breathe," Theron murmurs. "They can smell fear, but they can also smell courage. Show them the woman who faced down Vivian with a box cutter." Sarah lifts her chin and walks forward. Her heels pinch with every step, but she refuses to limp. Refuses to show weakness. Matthias stands as they approach. "Theron, Miss Blackwood, welcome." The formality in his voice is somehow worse than the casual cruelty from yesterday. Sarah manages a nod that she hopes looks respectful without being subservient. "Father?" Theron's voice is carefully neutral. "You requested an audience." "I did." Matthias descends from the platform with inhuman grace. Up close, Sarah can see the family resemblance, the same sharp features, the same elegant hands. But where Theron's eyes hold warmth beneath the silver, Matthias's are chips of ice. "I wanted to formally acknowledge Miss Blackwood's status. As of today, she is under the protection of this court, her daughter as well. Any who harm them will face the throne's justice." A murmur runs through the assembled vampires. Sarah catches fragments of conversation, disbelief, curiosity, and in some cases, outright hostility. However, Matthias's voice cuts through the noise like a blade. "Protection comes with expectations. Miss Blackwood, you are human, fragile, mortal. You cannot survive in our world without understanding its rules. Then teach me." The words escape before Sarah can stop them. Several vampires gasp, apparently interrupting the king is a major breach of etiquette. But Matthias smiles. It's not a nice smile, but it's not entirely cruel either. "Bold, I see why you intrigue my son." He gestures to the assembled crowd. "These are the Eastern Court. Some are allies, some are rivals. All are dangerous. You would do well to remember that any one of them could end your life before you drew your next breath." "Comforting," Sarah says dryly. A few vampires laugh, genuine laughter that surprises her. Matthias continues. "My son has returned to us because of you. He's reclaimed his position as heir, which means you are now connected to the succession. That makes you a political piece, whether you wish it or not." The implications of that statement wash over Sarah like cold water. She's not just Theron's girlfriend. She's a potential weakness in the power structure. A target. "I didn't ask for any of this," she says quietly. "No one ever does." Matthias's expression softens fractionally. "But here you are nonetheless. The question is, what will you do with it?" Before Sarah can respond, the doors burst open. A vampire staggers in, younger looking than most, with wild eyes and blood staining his expensive shirt. Not his blood, Sarah realizes with dawning horror. Fresh blood. My king! The vampire drops to his knees, gasping. The Western Court. They've taken her. They took the girl. The world tilts sideways. Sarah's brain processes the words in slow motion, each one landing like a physical blow. What girl? Theron's voice has gone deadly quiet. The vampire looks up, and his eyes lock on Sarah. The daughter. Emma Blackwood. They grabbed her outside her school 20 minutes ago. Left this. He holds out a piece of paper, and Theron snatches it with movements too fast to track. Sarah watches the color drain from his face, not that he has much to lose, and knows with absolute certainty that her worst nightmare has come true. Let me see. Her voice sounds strange, distant, like it belongs to someone else. Theron hesitates, then hands her the note. The paper is heavy, expensive, with elegant handwriting that turns Sarah's blood to ice. Dear King Matthias, we have the mortal child. She is unharmed, for now. This is not an act of war, merely a reminder that your protection means nothing if we choose to ignore it. The Western Court remembers when humans knew their place. We will return the girl in exchange for a simple acknowledgement that she and her mother are not protected, that they hold no status, that they are nothing more than cattle. You have until midnight. Queen Celeste of the Western Court. Sarah's hands shake so badly the paper flutters. Emma. They took Emma. Her baby girl, who's supposed to be in algebra class right now, who hates vegetables and wants to be a veterinarian, who still sleeps with a stuffed rabbit named Mr. Hopsworth, even though she claims she's too old for it. I'm going to kill them. Theron's voice is barely recognizable. I'm going to burn down their entire court and scatter the ashes. No. Matthias's command stops him mid-turn. This is exactly what Celeste wants. She's trying to provoke a war between the courts. If we attack, the council will be forced to intervene, and in the chaos, I don't care! Theron's roar shakes the chandeliers. They took an innocent child. They took Sarah's daughter. Sarah's brain has gone into a strange kind of clarity. Terror is there, underneath everything, but above it is something else. Something hard and sharp and absolutely focused. Where is the Western Court located? Her voice cuts through the rising chaos. Matthias looks at her with something approaching respect. Their stronghold is in the Old District, the cathedral building on 5th and Main. But Miss Blackwood, you cannot possibly. I'm going to get my daughter. Sarah turns to Theron. You said I'm protected. You said no one would touch her. Well, they did. So either that protection means something, or it doesn't. Which is it? The room has gone absolutely silent. Every vampire is staring at her, the human woman who just challenged a vampire king in his own throne room. Theron's face transforms. The anguish and rage are still there, but underneath is something else. Pride. It means something. It means everything. He looks at his father. Sarah's right. If we let this stand, every court will test us. Every rival will see humans under our protection as easy targets. We have to respond. Matthias studies them both for a long moment. Then, incredibly, he nods. Very well, but we do this strategically. Vivian, gather the guard. Theron, you'll lead the retrieval team. Miss Blackwood? Is coming with us, Sarah interrupts. That's non-negotiable. You'll slow us down. You're human, fragile. That's my daughter. Sarah's voice cracks, and she doesn't care. I don't care if I slow you down. I don't care if I'm fragile. I'm not sitting here while my baby is terrified and alone with monsters who... She stops, realizing what she said. I'm sorry. I didn't mean... Don't apologize. Matthias's voice is surprisingly gentle. You're right. To you, we are monsters. And the Western Court has behaved monstrously. He turns to one of the assembled vampires, a woman with short dark hair and scars across her neck. Elena, outfit Miss Blackwood with protective gear. Theron, take 20 of our best. I'll send a formal declaration to Queen Celeste. She'll know we're coming. But that's the point. We're not sneaking. We're not negotiating. We're taking back what's ours. The next hour passes in a blur. Elena, who turns out to be the court's master of arms, whatever that means, outfits Sarah in what looks like a thin black jacket, but apparently is woven with some kind of material that can resist vampire strength. She also provides a knife that Elena promises is silver-blessed and consecrated, though Sarah has no idea what that actually means. It won't kill one of us, Elena explains as she shows Sarah how to grip it properly. But it'll hurt like hell and buy you seconds to run. Seconds matter in our world. I'm not running, Sarah says. Not without Emma. Elena's scarred face softens. I had a daughter once. Human, like you, 300 years ago. She doesn't elaborate, but the pain in her eyes tells Sarah everything she needs to know. Get her back, mortal. Show them that Mother's love is more dangerous than any fang. Theron appears, dressed all in black, looking every inch the warrior prince. He's flanked by 20 other vampires, all of them radiating lethal capability. Sarah recognizes a few from the throne room, including the tall man who had to duck through the doorway. Ready? Theron asks, and his hand finds hers. No, but let's go anyway. They travel in black SUVs that probably cost more than Sarah's annual salary. She sits next to Theron in the back, her hand gripping the blessed knife hard enough to hurt. He hasn't let go of her other hand since they left the estate. I should have seen this coming, he says quietly. The Western court has always been traditionalist. They view humans as food, nothing more. Bringing you into the court, declaring you protected, it was an insult to everything they believe. This isn't your fault. Sarah squeezes his hand. It's mine. I dragged Emma into this. She's terrified because of my choices. Stop! Theron turns to face her fully. Queen Celeste did this. Not you. Not your choices. A cruel, ancient vampire who thinks hurting children is acceptable strategy. We're going to get Emma back, and then Celeste is going to learn what happens when you threaten my family. My family. The words hit Sarah like a physical force. Emma is his family now, in his mind. This vampire prince who's lived for centuries considers her 14-year-old daughter worth going to war over. The cathedral building looms ahead, genuinely a converted cathedral with Gothic architecture and stained glass windows that glow from within. It's beautiful in the way that poisonous flowers are beautiful, deadly and ornate in equal measure. The SUVs stop a block away. Theron turns to his team. Standard retrieval protocol. Elena's group takes the west entrance. Marcus handles the east. I'm going through the front with Sarah. Remember? We're here for the girl, not to start a war. But if anyone tries to stop us... His smile is terrible. Make them regret it. The vampires disperse with practiced efficiency. Sarah follows Theron toward the main entrance, her heart hammering so hard she's surprised it doesn't burst from her chest. The doors open before they reach them. A vampire stands there, male, impossibly beautiful, with white blonde hair and eyes like chips of amber. Prince Theron. The king's heir graces us with his presence. And you brought a pet. How quaint. Move, Lucian. Theron's voice could freeze fire. Before I move you. Lucian's smile doesn't waver. Queen Celeste is expecting you. The girl is unharmed as promised, though I must say, she has quite the mouth on her. Threatened to kick me in the... Well, let's just say your mortal has raised a spirited child. Relief floods through Sarah so intensely, her knees almost buckle. Emma's alive. She's fighting back. That's her girl. They follow Lucian through corridors lined with religious art that's been subtly defaced, crucifixes hung upside down, paintings of angels with their faces scratched out. It's deliberate sacrilege, meant to unsettle. Sarah focuses on putting one foot in front of the other, on the weight of the knife in her pocket. on the sound of Theron's steady breathing beside her. They reach a large chamber that was probably the main sanctuary. Pews have been removed, replaced with modern furniture that clashes horribly with the Gothic architecture. And there, on what looks like an actual throne, because apparently all vampire royalty has a throne, sits a woman who must be Queen Celeste. She's older than the other vampires Sarah has met, in the way that ancient things are old. Her face is unlined, her dark skin flawless, but her eyes hold centuries. Millennia, maybe. She wears a gown that looks like it belongs in a museum, all deep purple silk and intricate embroidery. And at her feet, sitting on the floor with her hands bound, is Emma. "Mom!" Emma's cry breaks Sarah's heart. Her daughter's face is streaked with tears, her school uniform torn at the sleeve, but she's alive. She's whole. Sarah takes a step forward, but Theron's hand on her arm stops her. "Wait," he whispers. "Protocol." How touching. Celeste's voice is rich, cultured, with an accent that predates modern language. The mortal mother, ready to rush to her offspring's defense. "Tell me, Sarah Blackwood, do you understand what you've done? What chaos you've introduced to our carefully ordered world?" "I fell in love with your son," Sarah says, surprised by how steady her voice sounds. "That's all. I didn't ask for protection or status or any of this. Love." Celeste says it like it's a disease. How delightfully primitive. We are not creatures of love, child. We are creatures of hunger, of power, of survival spanning centuries. Your love is a flash of lightning, here and gone, meaningless in the grand scope. Then why does it threaten you so much? The words escape before Sarah can stop them. The chamber goes deathly quiet. Even Emma stops crying, staring at Sarah with wide eyes. Celeste rises from her throne with liquid grace. "Threaten me? You think your existence threatens me?" "Yes." Sarah takes a step forward, shaking off Theron's restraining hand. "If it didn't, you wouldn't have kidnapped my daughter. You wouldn't have sent that note. You wouldn't care at all. But you do care, because every time a human and a vampire connect as equals, it challenges everything you've built your power on." The vampire queen moves faster than Sarah can track, suddenly inches from her face. Sarah can smell something ancient on her breath. Old blood and older magic. "You dare!" "I dare, because my daughter is right there, and I will walk through fire to get her back." Sarah doesn't flinch, doesn't back down. "You want acknowledgement that we're nothing? That we're cattle? Fine. I acknowledge that you're stronger, faster, immortal. But you know what I have that you don't? I have someone worth fighting for. I have love that makes me brave when I should be terrified. And I think," she leans in closer, "I think you remember what that feels like, and it scares you." For a moment, Sarah thinks Celeste might kill her. The vampire queen's eyes have gone completely black, and power radiates from her in waves that make the air itself feel heavy. Then Celeste laughs. It starts as a chuckle and builds into genuine laughter that echoes off the vaulted ceiling. "Oh, Theron," she steps back, shaking her head. "You didn't choose a mortal. You chose a warrior in a waitress's body." She waves a hand, and the vampire holding Emma releases the bindings. "Take your daughter, Sarah Blackwood. You've earned her." Sarah doesn't hesitate. She runs to Emma, dropping to her knees and pulling her daughter into her arms. Emma clings to her, sobbing into her shoulder, and Sarah breathes in the familiar scent of her shampoo and teenager sweat and home. "I've got you," Sarah whispers. "I've got you, baby. You're safe." "They were so scary, Mom. They kept saying things about eating me and—" "Shh, it's over. We're going home." Theron appears beside them, helping them both to their feet. His eyes scan Emma quickly. Professionally. "Are you hurt?" Emma shakes her head, still clinging to Sarah. "Just scared. Really, really scared." "That's acceptable." Theron's voice is surprisingly gentle. "Fear means you're smart. It means you understand danger." He looks at Celeste. "If you ever—" "Peace, young prince." Celeste waves a dismissive hand. I made my point. Matthias has his heir back, the mortal has her daughter, and I've demonstrated that protection means nothing without the power to enforce it. Her eyes find Sarah, but I will admit, you surprised me. Most humans would have groveled, begged. You challenged me instead. Most humans don't have my daughter, Sarah responds. Celeste's smile is almost approving. No, they don't. She returns to her throne. Go, before I change my mind. And Sarah Blackwood, raise that girl well. The world needs more women who refuse to bow. The journey back to the estate is quiet. Emma falls asleep in the SUV, her head on Sarah's shoulder, exhaustion finally catching up with terror. Sarah strokes her daughter's hair and tries not to think about how close they came to losing everything. Theron watches them both with an expression Sarah has never seen before. Soft, almost reverent. What? She whispers, not wanting to wake Emma. I'm watching the two bravest people I've ever known, he responds quietly, and wondering how I got lucky enough to find you. Luck had nothing to do with it. You walked into a diner at midnight looking for coffee. Best decision I've made in 247 years. Back at the estate, Matthias is waiting. He looks at Emma, still sleeping against Sarah, and something crosses his ancient face. Memory, maybe. Loss. For just a moment, Sarah sees the man he might have been before centuries of power and cruelty hardened him into the Vampire King. The girl is safe, he says. That's good. Thank you, Sarah responds, for sending help, for... Don't thank me yet. But his voice lacks its usual edge. Celeste made her point, but so did we. The courts will talk about this for decades. The human mother who challenged a queen and walked away with her daughter. The prince who returned to save them both. He looks at Theron. You chose well, my son. It's the closest thing to approval Sarah has heard from him. That night, after Emma is safely tucked into a guest room in the estate, because Sarah isn't letting her daughter out of her sight for at least a week. Theron finds Sarah on one of the many balconies overlooking the grounds. Couldn't sleep? He asks, joining her at the railing. Too much adrenaline still. Sarah leans against him, and his arm comes around her shoulders. I keep replaying it. What if Celeste hadn't let her go? What if... But she did. Theron's voice is firm. You faced down a vampire queen and won, Sarah. Not through power or threats, but through sheer human courage. You reminded her what it means to fight for something beyond survival. Sarah thinks about Celeste's eyes, about the laughter that sounded almost sad. She lost someone, didn't she? Someone she loved. Centuries ago, her human husband and their children, before she was turned. Theron's grip tightens slightly. It's why she hates what I'm doing, because she knows exactly how it ends. The implication hangs between them. Sarah will age. In 70 years, if she's lucky, she'll be dust, and Theron will still be here, unchanged, immortal, carrying the memory of her like Celeste carries her losses. Worth it anyway, Sarah says quietly. However long we get, it's worth it. Theron turns her to face him, his hands framing her face with impossible gentleness. I'm going to make it worth it. Every moment, every second. I'm going to love you so completely that when you're gone, I'll still feel it. I'll carry you with me through centuries. He kisses her then, and Sarah tastes something like desperation beneath the tenderness. Like he's trying to memorize her, to hold on to this moment against the inevitable passage of time. When they finally part, Sarah rests her forehead against his. Emma likes you, you know, even after today. She told me in the car, said any guy who brings an army to rescue her is pretty cool for a vampire. Theron laughs, the sound warm and genuine. High praise from a 14-year-old. The highest. They stand there on the balcony, mortal and immortal, waitress and prince, holding each other against the darkness. Somewhere in the estate, Emma sleeps safely. Somewhere in the city, people go about their normal lives, unaware of the shadow world that exists alongside theirs. And somewhere, other vampires are watching, learning that sometimes the most dangerous thing in the world isn't fangs, or strength, or ancient power. Sometimes it's a mother's love and a woman's courage, and the choice to stand your ground when everything tells you to run. Sarah Blackwood went to work one night, expecting nothing more than coffee stains and cruel customers. She found instead a vampire prince trying to be better than his nature. She found protection and danger in equal measure. She found herself standing between monsters, armed with nothing but a box cutter and absolute conviction. And she found, against all logic and reason, a love worth fighting for. Even if it meant facing down vampire queens and walking through the shadows of an immortal world, she'd do it again. For Emma. For Theron. For the chance to matter in a life that had spent too long making her feel invisible. The waitress who stood her ground. The mother who challenged a queen. The woman who reminded immortals what it means to be human. Sarah Blackwood, who proved that sometimes the greatest power isn't living forever. It's knowing what you'd die for.